Hello everybody, it's Violet again from Journal Art Paperie. Just going to take you through a very quick painty little video this morning. But firstly, before I do that, I've been really thinking about what the trending colours are at the moment, and it's pretty easy to find, but yeah, some of the very pale blues, aquarish kind of shades as well. And I thought I might make my next journal with some of those hues in mind. So what I'm doing today is I just wanted to show you what I've been up to, just a few little bits and pieces. This is actually off a Woolies shopping bag. You can see some of the actual writing is still on it. What I've done is I've actually torn it up into squares or bits and pieces, and then I've used a texture paste to put a little design on here. And I used the modelling compound from Chroma, which is an Atelier brand, which is this one here. That's the one I used this time. I use a variety of the modelling pastes and texture pastes, but that's the one that I used for this. No rhyme or reason, just because it's what I had at hand. And I've used this little stencil here. I think it's more like a cake type of stencil, but I like it because it's kind of vintagey, and some of the pattern in it, I'll put that, maybe that behind it, you can see it a little bit better, is it's not too fine. Sometimes I find with the finer stencils they can actually tear, or you know, if you're not very careful when you're spreading your texture paste out, they can actually leave splodges all over what you're trying to achieve, so the pattern is sometimes a little bit lost. So I like using a little bit of a bigger design, and that's what I've used for this. And I've done a pile of these. I just had a little bit of a random tearing up morning, and yeah, this is dry because I didn't do this morning. I did this on another day. But I thought what I might do today is with the blues in mind, and I'm still very vintage in my mindset, so I thought I might do some little forget-me-not type flowers. Now, I don't know if you're all painters or you've ever tried, but I use the Sonia gouache or the artist's acrylic, and I've just set up a few little colours along here on my wet palette just to help me get to the end. And I'm going to have a little bit of a play, and I'm going to put some forget-me-nots on here. And then what I tend to think I might do is use some of my beautiful little blue shades of my wax here and put a few little dots of wax around it as well after. But I'm going to go through and paint a few of these. But yeah, what I've done is I've got a whole pile here, and I've actually torn up the bag. I'll just show you the top of the bag and what I have left. This is, I kept it because I thought, oh, I can make a nice little pocket out of this. So this is the top of the bag, and opened up, obviously that's about the size, the width of the bag. So what I've done is I've just bent it over. I'm going to probably gesso that, but I'm going to make like a little folder for one of my journal pages out of this. I'm going to leave the handle on as well because I think that's pretty funky. But yeah, when I get to that, I'll show you what I'm going to do with this little piece here. So I haven't wasted any of the bag, and obviously you get them free with your shopping here, but I'm sure that other shops supply these beautiful old brown paper bags for their groceries. So I'll just pop those aside, and we'll get started on painting a few little bits and pieces. Now, I haven't got any design in mind, but all I thought of was I might paint a few little forget-me-nots. Now, you don't have to be a painter to be able to achieve something like this. That's why I'm doing it, because I incorporate painting, drawing, wax sealing, all kinds of stuff into my journals, and I thought maybe you do too. If you don't, why don't you have a go at this, because it's really blimmin' easy. Anyone can do it. So what I'm using here is like a 5-round brush, and it's an old brush. It's not a great quality brush, so whatever you have on hand. And I've put a little bit of water on this just to soften up the brush. I don't use an awful lot of water generally in my painting because it tends to water down or reduce the binder in the paint. So I'm just going to grab some of this blue here. This is a Jo Sonja Pacific blue, and I've also put some French blue on here. Now, forget-me-nots are not this colour, so I'm just going to mix a couple of colours together and see what I come up with. So I'm going to grab a little bit of this French blue. I'll pop that in there, make a dirty sort of bluey colour. And I'm going to add a bit of white to that as well. This is just titanium white here. I'm going to go messy as. It doesn't have to be perfect. And, you know, the beauty of paint is that if you stuff it up, you can just paint over it. So there's no mistakes in art. You can just make what you need to make. So I've loaded up that brush quite nicely, and I'm just going to pop a few little random bits here and there. You might not see it so well on the brown background, but we'll lighten it up in a minute. So I'm just going to put 5 little dots here. I might put 1 dot up here, 1 dot here. Let's make a 3 flower, so we'll put another dot there. And I'll show you another way of doing this if you're not confident with a brush. We'll do that in a minute, and I'll put maybe give a little bit of room there. So all I'm doing is just putting 5 little dots around. Okay, simple as. I'll just put another little one over here. Things are never really in nature. They never really come in even numbers. It's normally odd numbers that always look a little bit nicer in presentation. And if you look at the leaves on a plant or a rose, you know, you'll see sets of 3s. You won't see sets of 4s or even 2s unless some bug or a bird has taken it off. But yeah, so keep that in mind. Design, it will always look more aesthetically pleasing when there's an odd bunch of flowers or an odd number of leaves. It doesn't tend to look so cool when it's even numbers for some reason. God planned it that way, obviously. So the other thing you can do is on the back of your paintbrush on this end here, if you're not happy or confident starting here, use this as a painting implement. So we'll just go on to another piece. We'll come back to that in a minute. So just dip the other end in and stick some dots down. Notice they got smaller as I went because the paint is diminishing over the dots. But if you're not confident doing it the other way, do it that way, okay? So it's quite easy. We'll just go back. Now I want to make, I can feel a cough coming on because I've got a bit of a raspy sort of throat today. Not sure why, doesn't matter. I'm going to grab some more white and bring it down here. I'm going to add some of this colour to it, just so that I've got a lighter tone. I want to make these pop out a little bit. So I'm not using pure white at this stage. I'm just using quite a light blue. So I'm just going over these again. It's just going to give them a little bit of a highlight so they stand out a bit better. Oh, these are so easy. You can do them all kinds of colours just to make random little paintings on your projects. Okay, I'll wash that off and we'll go to the white, the yellow, the centre rather. So same again. I'll just pull it over here because I want to lighten that up as well. So I'm pulling a bit of the paint there. Again, just a single dot in the middle. Doesn't matter if you pick up some of the blue, it just makes it more interesting looking. Okay, so, and I'll grab a little bit more white, change that colour a little bit, tend to go a little bit lighter in the centre. Now they don't really look much at the moment, but we're going to bring some green into the mix. I'm going to keep that on my brush, pardon me, and I'm going to pick up some olive green over here. I'll keep the yellow on there because that'll tie the green in nicely. It has got a lot of yellow in this particular colour. I might need to brighten it up even because it's pretty dark coming on the back of the brown. If you were to paint this on white, it would stand out a lot more and you would have truer colours. But I love the vintage look of this, so I'm going to use that green. Now that was just olive green with a little bit of titanium white in it, and all I'm going to do here is just pull a little leaf out. See, simple as that, just a little dab of the brush. No rocket science here. Pulling it out just randomly where I think it needs a little leaf. They're going to lighten up in a minute. In fact, I might do that now. I might put a little bit of white and see what we get. I'll put it over here so I don't take away all my green. And just go over it again, just tiny little dabs, pulling colour. Doesn't have to be perfect. You can come and tidy it up if you want to. You know, the other thing you could do with this is if you're one of those perfectionist types like me, I'm often a little bit that side when I'm doing something like, for instance, if I did a quite large painting, I would not be just flicking here, flicking there. I'd be taking my time over it. But yeah, so on something like this, it doesn't have to look wonderful. It doesn't have, I mean, not wonderful. Of course it does have to look wonderful because it's your beautiful piece, but it doesn't have to look perfect. I'm coming up to a fine liner now. Now this can be a scary brush for a lot of people. Try not to think of it as scary if you've got one. Just remember that a liner brush needs a more fluid paint. So your consistency of your paint needs to change. You can either add some fluid medium, like a flow medium of some sort to your paint, or you can just use a bit of water. I'm using water today, and I'm just going to pick up this green again. I'll put some more water on the brush, and the reason for that is if you use just your normal, I might make it a bit lighter, just use your normal consistency of your paint, which would be more like a cream consistency, then you won't be able to move the liner brush very well. So what you need with a liner brush is nice fine lines. And the reason I'm using the liner brush is I'm just going to pull out some lines from the flower, just so that these little pieces here are connected to something. They're just sort of sitting there at the moment. And I'm just using the liner to draw in little bits around the edge, which tell me that belongs to the flower here. Actually, it's difficult to see, isn't it? I don't know if you can see that. Just change it. No, it's probably a little bit light. So let's put maybe some yellow in it and brighten it up. So I'm just going to grab a bit of colour from there. I don't want to make it too white. I still want it to keep the, and I'm a messy painter. You know, you can use a different piece of your equipment to pull the paint over. I'm just pulling it over because it's here, and I want to get through this a little bit quickly for you so you can see what I'm up to. Okay, so now I'm adding some more water to that because that's just going to be too thick to drag off the brush. It's not going to flow off my brush, it'll drag rather. So let's try this again, a little bit lighter. You can see it's just a couple of little flicks of the brush, pulling out the paint. Okay, it's probably a little bit easier to see. I think the problem here is it's probably because of the brown background. So we can make the leaves a little bit darker. I don't know if I want to, but we can do that in a minute. Alrighty, so now that doesn't look like a forget-me-not altogether. Just want to see what this looks like. I'm going to put a little line down each leaf here, just to lighten them up. I usually pull from the centre out because if I pull from the outside in, I'm likely to get a flat piece, whereas I want it flat here and coming to a point as I go towards the outside of the leaf. Now that kind of lifted them a little bit, but what will lift them is a little bit of shading. I know that sounds a little bit bizarre, but that's what we'll do. I'm going to pop a little bit of shading in here, and let me see, which brush will I use. Normally I use like a liner, like an angle shader to do shading, but what I'm going to do here is I'm going to put a very watery mix of maybe the French blue on its own. I'll just put a little watery mix. Can you see what I'm doing there? Just this brush might be a little bit of overkill, but what I'm going to do is just go around the center of the flower and just put some little dots of water. It'll pop out the center. Now you know you can do this. It's not difficult. You can see me doing it. I'm probably using the wrong brush here for this, but don't want to really get all my brushes out. And you saw in my last video I've got a whole pile of brushes. I'm a brush freak, so I've got so many of them. Now, if that's looking too yuck and you don't want it looking a little bit messy like I've got mine there, you can just sort of dab on it with your finger and take some of that colour away, which will leave the shading. But once that dries, because it's quite watery, you can see that I've put a lot of water in there, it'll look good once it's dry. I'm going to put a little bit down towards the bottom where the leaves come out. I think I might need to lift that up a little bit more. So I'm going to take another liner on my liner brush and I'm going to dip into some of this colour here. It should probably be almost white, but I don't want it too white. I'd rather it a very pale blue, just so that it's not going in your face. And I'm going to put some little dots on the edge of that, just to sort of sit them up a little bit more. You can see how the 3 layers, giving it more of a 3D effect, and that's the point of the 3D appearance. Okay, so that's looking a little bit better. Just adding that extra little bit of white to it. Okay, so you can see that's not a too difficult thing to do. If you want to go a little bit more extravagant with your painting, I'm going to just show you something else. So I'm going to pop a little bit of the Payne's Grey, which is this very dark blue. I'm going to keep it near my blue pile here. Payne's Grey is a brilliant colour. It's almost, it looks like a really deep navy blue, but it's not. And instead of using black in the centre, I'm going to use the Payne's Grey because it's got that blue tinge or tone to it. But it's a wonderful paint for, a wonderful colour for changing the hue of many colours, because it has like a bluey grey, yeah, just a bluey grey tone. It's not like adding black to something, which will, you know, muddy up everything. I'm just making that centre pop out a little bit by adding the darker tone right at the very edge of the centre. Sometimes I go around these to make them look a little bit funky. I go around the petals like I do on when I paint my shabby roses. I actually go around the leaves, because they're not true. They're just as they fall, really, when I paint them. And I just outline them. So what I might do that in a minute. And I think what I'll do, will I go darker or lighter? I think I'll go lighter and I'll outline the edges. Now you don't have to outline them. This is just something I'm doing just to see what it looks like pretty much. So I'm just going to go grab some more white and bring it over here, because I don't want it white. I want it pale blue. And I might go around the green green leaves as well. So I hope you're all having a lovely day. The weather here in Adelaide is pretty nice. It's overcast, which I love. I love the rain. I'm a thunderstorm person. I love thunderstorms. But I'm hoping that we're going to get a little bit of rain here. I know our people up in New South Wales and Queensland have had horrible flooding, and my heart goes out to them. But I love the rain, so I hope we do have a little bit of rain here. So you can see what I'm doing. I'm just going around the outside of the flowers. Gives it a kind of folky look. I do this even when I'm painting my beautiful waratahs that I paint. I actually sometimes go around the outside of the edges. I'll show you a picture of that in a minute if I can remember where I've put it. I do a lot of different paintings, and some are more realistic looking than others. And I like that because, it's my choosing day and I can do that. So I think that's actually standing them out a little bit better. So I would go with that if you're feeling confident with the brush. If you're not, then get yourself a white pen or those very fine markers that you can get anywhere today, and get some beautiful shades in those, and just going around the outside of these. That'll stand them up a bit more. Yeah, so get yourself a marker and just go around it with a pen. You don't have to be an artist to do that. You've probably been, doing it with a fine brush like this can be a little bit intimidating, I suppose, if you're not a painter. But, yeah, I kind of like that look a bit better. It just sort of stands the flower out. Not realistic, but it stands it out and I like it. So I'm just going to head off over with my dirty brush to my green, and I'm going to do the same with the green. I might add a little bit more white to that, just so that it's not pure white, but it's a very pale tone of that green there. So you can see I've added quite a bit of water to that. Make sure you don't have big globs on the end of your brush, otherwise you won't get those nice fine lines. So I'm going to go around the edge of the leaf here, and I'm going to, there we go, that looks all right. And that'll tone down a little bit in a minute, because I think I might need to add a little bit more green. It's just a little bit too white. So if you don't have paint, and you're going to get some paint at any stage, go into your local Spotlight store or whatever's your cheaper supply type of place, and look for the De Sonia paints. I'll tell you, you will not be disappointed, because they will last you for years. And I mean, I probably shouldn't say that, because they want to sell more, so they don't want you keeping them for years and years like I have. But my paints are over 20 years old, and they're still looking after me. They're still painting as beautifully as they did when I first got them. I'm just outlining a few of these leaves here. I think that's nice, though. It sort of stands them out. I know it's a little bit much for just a little piece of ephemera for my channel. Oh my goodness. Just, it's only taken me, what, 10 minutes or so? Oh no, probably more. I talk more. So, okay, I'm just going to leave it there. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to come back with my wax, and we're going to doody-da this up a little bit more. Okay, so I've melted a little bit of wax with my trusty little wax smelty thing here. And I can feel a cough coming on. I'm just thinking, what will I do? What will I do? And I thought, I've got a toothpick here. I'm just going to maybe see if I can drop a few little bits of wax on it, just in case if you're watching and you don't actually have a wax seal stamp, which is one of these trusty little doodads here. You can just pop a little bit of wax on it like that. But because I do have a wax seal stamp, I've only put one little wax pellet in here, and I'm going to just keep it back on there for a minute. This spoon doesn't usually fit into this wax burner here. I usually use a bigger one, but it's got wax in it at the moment, so I'm just melting. I might need more than the one, so I might just pop another one in just in case, because I usually use at least 3 of these little pellets to make a seal. In one of my last videos on making glue wax seals, I showed you how to make wax seals using glue with one of these and using 2 pieces of glue. I've got it over here. I've chopped it up. So that size glue, 2 pieces of that, plus one of the wax pellets makes at least a wax seal, probably nearly 2 wax seals, but I'll just leave that there for a minute. I thought I was only going to use the one, but because I've used some of it putting some spots of wax around it, it looks a little funky. I like it. And just come on, push that down to the bottom there and melt it around a little bit. Because this spoon, if I leave it on, it's not a problem. It won't go in, fall in or anything, but I just don't want to take the risk while I'm doing this on camera. I'll just move it back over a bit. So I'm stirring it up, making sure that that wax pellet is nicely melted. Move that aside for a minute. And I've got some piece of just vintage paper here. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to maybe scrunch that a little bit and put that wax down over it. The reason I'm scrunching it is just so that I've got enough wax there, which I think I do. And I've got my little bee. I'm going to put the bee on it. Now, wax seals don't have to be perfectly round. I like them when they're not. If you're looking for something perfect, then that's perfectly fine. But they don't have to be in the round shape as you see them generally. I'm just going to blow that out so that I don't have a problem with the fire. And normally I would keep this going for hours and just be creating wax seal after wax seal, but I don't want to overdo it. As far as this video, I want to try and keep it shorter. I'm just going to take that off. I've got a little bee there. How cool is that? Nice little piece of ephemera for your page. Now, I'm not sure what I'm going to do with all of these, so I'm going to make a whole pile of them today, and they're all going to have either a bee or a bit of a frond or something on them. But I love that little bit of wax, the little bit of spots of wax around the forget-me-not flowers. Okay, so now you can do that with pink. It doesn't have to be blue. You can make little pink random flowers, and no one knows they're forget-me-nots unless you tell them that they are. So I hope you've enjoyed this video today, and yeah, come back again for the next one. Bye for now.